Hello and welcome back to the Young Entrepreneur's Journey podcast with your host, Yasmina Ellins. And today I have the absolute pleasure of chatting with Joey Speers, who founded a company called JSmedia, which is a creative agency that builds brands and arms creatives with the power to turn their passion into a business that solves real problems and make a real impact. So thank you so much for coming on, Joey.
Wow, I think you wrote that better than I could ever say that. That's amazing. That sounded awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. And this is exciting. I'm really excited to chat.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So the first question that I want to ask you is, what originally got you onto your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, it's a great question. It happened really, really early. I was that super innovative kid who was constantly wanting things to be the way I wanted them to be. And we live in a world where things aren't always the way you want them to be. So what I had to do was I had to innovate a little bit. So I remember from the youngest age, like just doing tons of stuff to innovate when it came to how to stick a camera on my head, how to make an extra couple bucks because I needed something. And so I'm from Canada, so I'd be running around with a shovel, shoveling snow and knocking on doors. And so I got started really, really early. Luckily I had some parents that made sure it happened that way. I hated it when I was a kid because I had to, make my own money and different things like that. But it was really great looking back on it now. So I got started really early, but probably the first thing that really hit, and it's taking me to where I am now, was the creative stuff. The filmmaking stuff was really my first thing. I started a filmmaking business when I was 14, but I started getting paid to shoot videos probably about a year prior to that. So started pretty early.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the ultimate definition of a young entrepreneur, like extremely resourceful and someone who are just going to go out there and make things happen for themselves. So that's quite cool. So you kind of had the intersection of having that really entrepreneurial spirit and then also being really creative and getting into filmmaking and stuff like that. So how did those two things then come together, and what was the journey like for you in starting your first business, and what are some things that you learned from that experience?
Yeah, it's a great question. The journey to starting it was what I wasn't even really aware of. I literally was just out shooting videos every day. I'd go to school, come home, go shoot a video, come home, edit the video. And at the time there wasn't even somewhere to post it when I was like I was doing this from the age of 8, for years. So by the time I was 11 and 12, I was making videos every day. I'd go home, straight into the bush, go biking, come home, make a video, or go skateboarding or whatever it was. It was all extreme sports stuff. Go cliff jumping. At a very young age, I just loved shooting this stuff. But I wasn't shooting it because I loved being creative. I was shooting it because what we were doing was crazy. And I was like, it needs to be captured in case anybody gets either they're going to land the trick, or they're going to get messed up, and they're going to land in the middle of the fire that he was supposed to jump over on his bike, and that's going to be a cool video. So yeah, I wasn't filming out of this necessity to soothe the creative soul. It was out of the necessity to, just like you said, resourcefulness, to capture something, because other people would benefit from what I captured, if you will. So the journey to actually starting that business was one, like I said, I wasn't even that aware of, because I hit age 12, 13. I was starting to shoot for some pro skiers and snowboarders, and I was in that scene doing some of that stuff. And I loved shooting action sports. And all of a sudden people would say to me, hey, we're family friends, or I know your parents, or I know this person that knows you, and I've got this business. What are your thoughts on coming to do a video for me? And being 12 and being offered $100 to do a video, I was like, are you kidding me? Yes, it's amazing. I would love to do a video. And in Canada, I always say this is kind of how I thought about it. But there's a coffee shop called Tim Hortons that's just rampant everywhere in the country. It's the most Canadian thing ever. I think they're actually in England now. I think they have a couple, or maybe it's just Northern Ireland. There's one in Northern Ireland for sure. But
I have no
anyways,
idea.
it's like a chain of coffee shops, but it's all right, the blood of Canada. And I was like, man, that's 100 donuts at Tim Hortons. That's how I was thinking about it, right? Because $100, that's 100 donuts. So it happened. Moral of the story is, it happened so naturally. It wasn't like I woke up one day and said, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to do this, do that. I just was an entrepreneur, and I just all of a sudden was making money. All of a sudden I was solving problems for businesses. All of a sudden I was solving problems for pro athletes, through a creative outlet. And I wasn't that creative kid. Like I wasn't this crazy creative kid my whole life. I was very problem solving and innovative. I've always been that kid who loved being resourceful and stuff, but I was never the kid who just wanted to like look at light and like how it bends, and like I was never into that stuff. So it was quite interesting how looking back on it now, I started my business, and you're asking me some things I've learned. One of the things I learned that I really like, and I'll tell you one thing I learned that's good and thing I learned that was bad. One of the things I learned that was really good is that I'm actually not drawn to being creative. I'm drawn to problem solving. And it just so happened that having a camera in my hands at a young age was the first thing I ever felt that was fully in my power in terms of my ability to solve a problem. And so I grasped onto it. So a lot of people think I'm this like really creative photographer and filmmaker. I'm not. I'm just some guy who found out how to use a camera to solve a problem for somebody, and I got really obsessed with that. So what I learned early on was that problem solving takes you far. If you develop a muscle to problem solve, again, and this pandemic's been a great example, right? There's going to be more millionaires, billionaires, successful people made out of this pandemic than ever before. Just like the 2008 pandemic, the recession, same thing. But you have to walk around with eyes of opportunity. And I think that the art of problem solving is just that, being able to walk around with open eyes saying, okay, what do I believe about the world? What do I see in the world, and how do I fit into that? And how can I make it better? And so I think that's something that, looking back on it, I did really well. And I learned about myself, which has been really cool. Another quick thing I learned probably about running a business when I first started it was that, people, if you choose people, you'll win every time. Life's a relational game. I don't think there's any profession that relationships don't put you in a great position when you focus on them. And I'm super extroverted. I love people. I really, really love people. And if my business didn't let me work with people, I wouldn't do it. I got to be around people. Actually, that's why I love being self-employed and working for myself and having an agency, because we're always doing something different, which means we're working with different people, which is cool. So I think that's another thing I learned, is just to put people first, like really, really play the people game, not for the sake of getting anywhere in business, but just because loving people is just a great thing to do. But it always kicks back. So the classic, your net worth, your network, it's so cliche, but it is so true. What did I learn about myself or learn about business that I probably did wrong? I'll give you one in the beginning. Sure. I learned about, there's so many things, so many things, everything from offer development to sales to everything like that. I'll give you one. It's kind of embarrassing. I like sharing this one. I got screwed over by Uber because of a faulty contract. So I learned a lot about the legal side of working with massive corporations and how they're monsters sometimes. And I'm grateful for that, because if I never went through that, I would not be, as turned on when it comes to making sure that my legal's tight these days. But I definitely learned something from that.
Yeah, there is so much to unpack in everything you just said and all of the wisdom that you just spilled. And so many things, but just riffing off your last point is just so important. As an entrepreneur, you think, I'm so excited, I'm going to solve these problems, I'm going to make an impact, I'm going to blah, blah, blah. And you get really excited about your thing. And then sometimes you forget about the legal side, which is extremely important. You forget about the financial side and, figuring out cash flow and accounting and all those kinds of things that are just essential business skills that you need to know if you want to stay tight and be successful. So that's such an interesting point. And then also the fact that you talked about the fact that it's a people game. It's so true. People at the end of the day are the shortcut to success. Relationships are money. Relationships is where all of these amazing things happen. And if it's a win-win, you can win together even better than you would have done on your own. So, and they can open up so many different opportunities for you. So, a question that I have for you on that is how do you build relationships, and how have you used the quote unquote people game to really make big moves in your business?
Yeah, it's such a great question. I could probably talk about this all day. I've got a lot of people stories, man. People have given me a lot through the last few years. 10 years, I would say. Wow, how have I used relationships? I'll break it down. I'll talk to you about some of the things that relationships have done for me and why I value them so much. And I'll talk to you about how I go about, pursuing relationship. So first things first, I think my first relationship, one of the relationships that really impacted me first, right off the bat, I had built a relationship with somebody who had known my family, who was incredibly successful, brilliant man, and this massive leader, just somebody I really look up to. And I had built a relationship with him, and out of his own generosity, right in the beginning, he kickstarted my pretty much legit business, because right as I started getting paid, he came to me and said, "Hey, I want to invest in you. I think you have got a lot in front of you, and I want to just invest in you. And not with anything, not need anything back. I'm not looking for a return. I just truly think that what you're doing is cool. And I have the resources to invest in you. And so what do you need? You tell me anything you need and I'll get it for you." So I was 13 at this point, I think. And I literally handed him like over a $10,000 sheet in gear, like video gear. Wow. And a new computer. And he had it to my door in like a couple days. So right off the bat, I think I noticed, I was like, wow, I just got shortcutted years of trying to save up for all this camera gear as a kid, shoveling driveways, cutting lawns, working at golf courses, whatever it was going to be, teaching snowboarding. I just got shortcutted years from one relationship. And I think that's when I really, really realized that I didn't want to play the people game to get things from people, but I wanted to be around that energy, that type of person that so willingly was able to invest in me and say, "Hey, no strings attached. I just believe in you." I was like, I want to be that guy. I want to be that guy for other people. I want to be able to give so freely and invest in people so freely because I believe in them, and I want to help them pursue their dreams and their ambitions, and I want to help them dream big. And so I think from the beginning, the people game was something that was super important to me because of the way that I was. I was influenced in that first step, and I've been influenced by people my whole life in massive ways. I've been around some amazing people, but that was really cool because I saw how fast it shortcutted me a couple years of slower business, because I was able to get way bigger jobs because I had better gear, higher quality. I looked more legit. Unfortunately, in the filmmaking business, the more gear you show up with, the more it looks like they're going to be able to pay you. It's just dumb, but it's how it works. So I was like, I got way more gear now. I don't just have a little camera and like a little glide cam. So that was really cool. And that's continued to happen. Like another story, a great friend of mine, who's also a client of mine, and he's also a coach of mine, incredibly big dog guy, like unbelievable entrepreneurial career, really cool story. Very successful in business before he became an entrepreneur. In the banking sphere, and he's given me way more than he'll ever know in terms of directing me as a younger man. And it was the people game. Like, this guy's not easy to get a hold of, and this ties me into exactly how I play the people game. I listen to this guy. He's got a podcast. It's called For the Love of Money with Chris Harder. Great dude. He's all about when good people make good money, they do great things. And I remember my dad asked me to listen to this podcast. I would have been 18. I hated podcasts at this time. I was like, I don't listen to podcasts. And the reason why is because I have a whole backstory. I have, you would never know this, but I have diagnosed learning disabilities and processing issues, all this stuff that as a kid I got thrown on me just because I was just a really passionate kid and had a lot of energy and didn't know how to control that. And so the school would just slap labels on me. So I've got a backstory of that stuff. And so I actually hated podcasts because I associated them with a past pain of education. And I had believed about myself because of what people had told me that I was incapable of being successful in an educational realm. So I always stayed away from podcasts, and I self-educated, but it wasn't really through podcasts or anything. I didn't think I could learn that way. So that was a little bit of my story back then. But he said, just give me one episode. Like, my dad was like, just give me one episode. This guy's great. You'll love him. And I didn't want to do it. Probably took him a couple weeks of being like, you should listen to it. And I was like, okay, it's a podcast on entrepreneurship and business and money mindset and all that stuff. And I gave it one listen. I can't even remember what the first episode I listened to was. And I binged I swear, 15 episodes that day. It was crazy. Into the next day, I just nonstop listened to them. I was obsessed. And immediately I said to myself the same thing I had said about that other guy who had invested in me. I need this guy in my life. I need to be around this guy. I need to be around his energy, his passion, his gratitude, his joy, his heart to give to people and use his business for good. I was like, I just need to be around this guy. So what did I do? I said, well, I'm going to be around this guy. I think I have a little bit of a relentless, just confidence. I'll make it happen. I'll do it. Whatever I got to do, I'll make it happen. So what did I do? I reached out to him and I learned a big lesson. I just reached out to him because he says he always answers DMs. I said, hey, if I fly myself to Santa Monica, because that's where he's from, will you give me 15 minutes of your time? And he said no. And I was like, what? I'm going to fly. I'm like this young kid. I'll fly all the way over to across the continent to come see you because I'm from more Eastern Canada. I'll fly all the way over there and see you for 15 minutes. And he said no. And it was one of the greatest gifts he could ever give me because I looked at it as soon as he said no. And I was like, what was I thinking? I was so excited to just get in touch with him. I totally neglected giving him any value. And so what I did was I took a step back. It was a little bit harder to get in touch with him to respond. And the responses were a little bit slower right after he had said no. Understandably. And I said, okay, I gotta prove to this guy that I want him in my life and he needs me in his life. So what I did was I just took an audit of everything he did. And just like you said at the beginning, I run a creative agency that helps build brands the world falls in love with. So I love people behavior. I love helping people identify who they are, why they do what they do, and how they're experienced and cleaning that up. That's the difference between someone who makes 10 mil going to 15 mil or 20 mil like that. Not working harder. It's just working cleaner and cleaning things up so that people really land the stuff you're saying lands. So anyways, I'm obsessed with that stuff. And as I said, he's doing an amazing job of that, but there's areas for growth that I can see for him. And so I just did a full audit of everything he's doing. And I responded, I said, hey, here's the top 3 things that I see you're doing really well right now. Here's the top 3 things that I think you have holes in. And here's the 3 ways I'm actually going to fix those for you. And he was on the phone with me in 15 minutes. And next thing I know, it was the next month I was flying over to Santa Monica to meet with him. So moral of the story is I learned a lot through that experience and many other experiences like that where I'm trying to get in touch with some really, really big people who I really, really respect, who are doing some really cool things in the world. And it just comes down to life is a give and take, and too many people ask, myself included. Like I said, I've done that wrong many times. Too many people ask before they're willing to give, and I see that all the time with people trying to get on podcasts, people trying to get to speaking at events. I see that all the time from looking for business partners, looking for advice, looking for a shout out, whatever it's going to be. People just ask, and life looks a lot different when you just give, and you're not attached to the giving as well. You're just willing to give and not really expect anything in return. That's what I had to get to that's the point I had to get to myself with that guy. I had to just say, hey, here's the 3 things that I can help you with. Here's how I'm going to do it. And I didn't ask for anything. I was like, I'm done asking. I'm just going to prove to him that he needs me in his life. And it's almost been 2 years now and we're great friends. He's like everything to me when it comes to my business, in terms of just shaping it and being someone that I really look up to and want to model it after. So moral of the story, just give more than you take. And if you can give with a heart give with a heart with no strings attached, you're going to get quite far. And you're also going to be filled up with a lot of joy while you do it.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. I see this all the time myself. I've been in a lot of entrepreneurial circles, and everywhere people are trying to promote their thing. They want people to give to them. They want all of the goods and they want it all now, but they haven't proven to others why they should help them or why they're of value or why should I invest in you? Why should you be in my life? That's because they haven't given, they haven't shown any value. And I see it all the time. And like just picture being someone who's maybe, a bit above, and then people want things from you all the time, people need things from you. If you're one of those people that indicates to that person, like, I need things, I want things, I'm going to take things, they're going to, like, just like that, like as quickly as possible, they're going to try and find a reason to get away from you immediately. So totally. Definitely true. It's all about giving. There's nothing, you know, there's nothing, as you were saying, it's not, you don't expect anything in return. It's just freely giving, and eventually it will come back to you. And so that's such an important point. Another thing that I really wanted to ask you, Joey, is earlier you were talking about your journey into like filmmaking, and then you were solving a problem, and then you eventually turned that into something, you know, creative and a business. I was curious to ask you, so, because money is a byproduct of value creation, right? And so it's very interesting how you were just creating value, you were solving problems, and suddenly the money came. And there's this common notion in society that, oh, creatives are making no money, and there's like this stereotype of the starving artist. And, you know, I know you have a Creative Rise mastermind as well, where you help people turn their creative passions into money, into fulfilling revenue. So I'm sure you've got many interesting thoughts on that idea.
Yeah, there is I never understood it when, this is why I definitely don't associate myself as like a to the soul creative person. There's just this notion of being poor and being unsuccessful is cool as a creative. And I think it's, I don't know if you're too into Enneagram stuff, but I mean, most creatives, like real creatives, are fours, and they have a desire to not really be understood, because it means that they're feeling like they're branching into something new, and people are learning to understand them. And it's this process that fours, really draw to. And so part of it stems from that, but I think part of it is just simply, first of all, running a business is not easy. It can be tough, not meaning it has to be complicated. The best businesses in the world are the simple ones, but running a business takes a lot of grit, and being a creative and trying to get yourself out there and trying to get, your work somewhere, trying to get jobs, get gigs, whatever it's going to be. Like it's draining if you're not obsessed with business. If business is not in your DNA and you just need to create, of course, that's going to be tough. So first things first, a lot of creatives are wired to create, not to build businesses. And second of all, we're humans, which means we're animals, and animals are tribal. If there's anything I've learned about people in the last couple years, it's just that, people need to feel belonging to things, and great leaders are people who can set stages where people can belong, because when anyone belongs, they perform. And with that point though, when someone is struggling creatively, it's a lot easier to look around and say, well, if I'm struggling and you're struggling and that guy's struggling, well, let's just all struggle, because we're tribal people. We want to feel belonging to something. And it turns out for most creatives, it becomes the struggle club. And it's this vicious cycle they struggle to get out of, because it's way easier to belong to that and to belong to mediocrity than it is to, have to actually go out and build a business, right? And push yourself and really, really learn and get into, the people groups you need to get into the spaces where your work needs to be seen, whatever that's going to be. So yeah, the struggle club is real, and it doesn't stem from anywhere other than the fact that humans are animals and we just want belonging to things. And because the next three guys down the row from you all also suck at making money off what they create, it's much easier to just lump yourself in and say, well, I'm just going to be cool and struggle as well. And we're all just going to tell each other that's cool. And then there's like a small percentage of creatives that are kicking butt and making great money and doing great things with that money. And yeah, there's just this massive divide in the creative world of people who feel they're the real creatives, and that's why they don't make any money, which is sure, that's true. And then there's the people who are creative, but also recognize that your art actually doesn't do anything for you. You have to learn how what your art does for somebody does something for you. So what was that second question? Did you have a second question on the back end of that?
I didn't, but I guess the follow-up question that I would ask is, how do you take a creative who is a member of the struggle club, and it's like this whole glamorized thing of, oh, we're struggling and it's so romantic, but I can't pay my bills, but I'm an artist and no one understands me. Mm-hmm. So how do you take someone like that and then turn them into, you know, a creative who is actually making an impact. They've turned their creativity into something that is of value to others and actually start making money?
Yeah, it's a great question. This is something I love. I'm passionate about this because, like I said, I don't associate myself as like a true creative, but I'm a creative, and I grew up thinking I was creative. And so I have a heart for people like myself. You know, I think back to myself when I was younger, and I was like, I'm so glad I had different people in my life that spoke into my life, and I had natural abilities and natural tendencies and stuff that developed, you know, an awareness on how to make money with what I do. I just want that for everyone. No one deserves to not do what they love for a living, right? Like some creatives they'll never get to do what they're so good at. And that just breaks my heart. So first things first, like I think it comes down to what I said on that last question. Your work does not get you paid. Understanding what your work does for someone and how to leverage that is what gets you paid, right? What your work does for someone, again, people don't buy your work for what you did. They buy it for what it's going to do for them. All right. People buy solutions to their own problems, whether it's a painting on their wall they were looking for, whether it's a new website, whether it's a social media campaign, whatever it's going to be, whatever kind of creative asset you're shooting your wedding. People don't buy products. They don't buy art. They buy solutions to problems. And so the first thing that we take people through, and like you said, yeah, the Creative Rise Mastermind is a really cool thing that I'm so grateful that we developed and got out there just over a year ago now. But I basically looked around and I was helping all these people online with their businesses, build businesses. Like I said, I'm so passionate about people like me getting to do what they do and make good money doing it. And I just said, I can't keep doing this at the rate I'm doing this, because I was just doing it for free in the DMs, just giving out so much advice because I love people. And I was hurting my other business, my agency, my creative agency, because I was taking so much time from that, right? So I chunked out time and said, you know what? I'm going to stop giving people advice one-on-one, and I'm going to start doing it in a group because proximity to community is everything, and great things happen in numbers. So I decided I'm just going to create a creative business coaching online platform where people are going to come, and it's going to be community based, and everyone is going to build off each other. You're not coming to me to learn from me because I've got a lot of answers, but I do not have all the answers, and something you might go through is different than maybe what I went through. So the idea is, if I can just foster a community, like I said, if I can be a leader who creates belonging, everyone performs. And in a communal sense, that looks like everyone actually helping each other. So no one is above, no one is below. And we've had about 66 members go through so far. It's been awesome. Amazing. We have 6-week version, and then we have a 6-month version that graduates can jump into. But basically it's just taking people from ground zero and reprogramming them, saying, hey, getting better at your art is not getting you paid. Stop working on your art every day. Waking up, hoping to wake up one day and going, I'm going to have, $500,000 sitting in my bank account because I worked on my work. Working on your work does not get you paid. Working on how your work impacts someone is what gets you paid. So we just break every notion and perceived idea around how creativity and business go together, and we just rebuild it. But we rebuild it in a sense of community, so people can ask questions and they're invited to belong and test things and really connect with each other. Like I said, the idea of doing that solo is great. I can help a lot of people one-on-one doing that, but the ability to refine your thoughts and your learnings and your desires and your wins and your losses in community is just so great. So I've seen that in my own life. And so that's what I want to offer to people. But yeah, it all starts breaking that struggle for someone, taking someone from the struggle club to the, hey, I'm awesome now and I'm crushing it. And I'm actually validated for my art because there's money in the bank and I'm helping people. The only thing it takes you there, I believe, one is community first and foremost. I believe it's an inflow of, you have to have someone who's been there and done that. So that's my role in the Creative Rise community as I lead that. And then you have to be willing to have your mind changed and have your ways changed, because as creatives we're programmed to, like you said, not want to win. We want to lose. We want to stay in the struggle club. So having those mental shifts in that community and accountability to be with you in that, and then just realizing, I've got to stop focusing on my work. Work's important. It's great to master. I'm all for mastering what we do in life, but understanding that, you can master your art all you want, but your art doesn't sell. What your art does for someone sells. And you've got to learn how to really, really get after that.
Most definitely. And like the whole idea of you mastering your craft, as you were saying, is a great thing. But once you can turn your craft into money, that's going to enable you to give even more to the world. That's going to enable you to create even bigger and better things. Because if all you're focused on is mastering your craft, you have no money, and suddenly you're struggling and everything's falling to pieces, you're not going to be able to give on the same level. It's like, when you're on like an aeroplane and they're like, put on your oxygen mask before you put on the oxygen mask of those around you. You've got to fill your cup before you try to fill someone else's cup. So it just becomes like a fountain. And then, everything you do from that point on, you're able to then give your best self. And I totally agree with what you're saying around community as well, because just all of these beautiful synergies occur in a community. And when just the melding of like-minded minds come together to solve these problems and just come up with great ideas is really a fantastic thing. And in a community like that, you can find new allies, new people to partner with, new friends, new mentors. So I think what you're doing in that respect is a great thing. And another question that I have is on branding, because this is something that you're clearly very excited about. How do you recommend that people go around branding themselves? Like, what are some of the common mistakes that people make, and what can they do about that?
This is a great question. Great question. So I think the first thing first is like defining branding. It's a pretty loose word. I think a lot of people throw it around in ways that don't fully explain it, or they over explain it to the point where it's not explained. And I just take it back to branding is simply how you're experienced. It's not just your logo. It's not just your name, your colors. A lot of people focus a ton on that. And that's not where the power in branding is. The power in branding is what I mentioned right off the bat. Discovering who you are, why you do what you do, and how you're experienced. And, oh man, we could talk about this forever, but yeah. So that stuff is really, really crucial. And why I say brand is so crucial is, brand creates belonging. And like we just talked about before, belonging creates everything. It creates the ability to perform. And so when you can give a customer belonging to what you do, they're a customer, and they're a great customer, and they are, an unpaid affiliate. They just start telling everybody. They're screaming from the mountaintops about you because they're so attached to that brand. But you're never going to attach somebody to the brand based on your logo. You're never going to attach somebody emotionally based on your fonts or your colors, even the look of your brand. It is only ever going to be based on how they are experiencing you, what that feels like to them, why you do what you do, because that is the most powerful common human connector, is developing a sense of why someone does something they do, and for you to sit there and go, wow, that's actually why I do what I do as well. That is a massive belonging connector, which is really important. So yeah, brand is crucial because it is the only thing that creates loyalty over what's the word I'm looking for? Over being a commodity. So, we live in a world where there's just so much demand for so many things. Which means there's a lot of businesses, and the best way to have a business where you're not in a rat race of sales. It's great when companies can, have awesome sales teams that are just crushing it. But it's even better when you're able to turn off your sales team and you're still making money. And the only way that happens is brand. Because brand creates loyalty, sales, and running in that hamster wheel creates just commodity. You just have to sell more, do more, lower price, where brand really gives you a unique stride in the market. So a great example of this is Apple. Apple is all about why they do what they do. You'll never see them run a commercial and talk about the internal core processor of their iPhone. They only ever talk about how they make your life simpler. They go, we make your life simpler so you can win your day. That's all they ever do. That's all Apple talks about. All their marketing is geared towards that. And so they're taking their brand and they're branding through their marketing. Brand is how someone feels about your business. Marketing is telling someone about how they should feel about your business. So it's just it's developing and showing you the brand. So, it's a great example. But Apple, I've never once had someone sell me something from Apple. I've never met a sales guy from Apple. I've never, you know, had to be sold on anything from Apple. Anytime Apple releases anything, it's in my pocket. Boom, done. It's Apple. New AirPods, done. New iPhone that has a sweet wide angle lens, done. And I'm only able to bring myself there because I'm so emotionally invested in their business. And they've only captivated me simply off one thing, not the little apple with a bite taken out of it. That's not what has captured me. Not the fact that it's all, you know, clean cut silver and white and black. Like, not that. It's the fact that they make my life simpler, right? And they tell me, hey, we make your life simpler so you can win your day. Well, what do I want to do? I want to win my day. So they're branding everything so perfectly that it emotionally just draws people in, which is really, really cool. So yeah, brand is important. That's just a little bit of I could talk about this literally all day, but that's a little bit of a start on why it's important.
And
I guess, sorry, how people should, were you going to ask how people should?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what are some action steps that people can take in their own businesses and their own brand to start creating that kind of effect, to understand how people are experiencing them and to just get their message across in that really powerful way?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, we'll see how this goes. We'll try and do it interactively. So can you just name any brand for me? What's the first brand that comes to mind?
I mean, Apple.
I've already said Apple. So anything else? A different
one. I'm trying to think of one that's international that people know.
Well, any brand is fine. Just name anything.
McDonald's.
Okay, McDonald's. So why did you think of McDonald's?
Because it's everywhere.
And what does it being everywhere mean?
Being everywhere means that it's in the forefront of people's minds all the time. So that when they think, oh, I'm going to go to a fast food place, immediately McDonald's comes to mind because it's everywhere. Yeah.
So in other words, McDonald's is incredibly available anywhere we go, meaning it's always there for us. And what you said is just pretty key. And this is why I asked you this question. No one ever is emotionally attached to a brand the way that you just said you're attached to McDonald's, or even values a brand if they cannot associate that brand solving a problem. And you just did that. You just told me that the fact that McDonald's is everywhere means that they're available everywhere, which solves the problem of, oh, if I ever need food in a pinch and I don't really care what I'm going to eat, the solution, I have a problem if I'm hungry, and McDonald's can say, hey, we're always here for you. That's a massive solution. So I just want to make it clear to everyone who's listening, you will never have a healthy brand if you cannot associate yourself with a problem you're solving in the world. Every brand does this. I ask people this question all the time. They say Uber. And I said, why Uber? And they said, oh, because they've taken over the taxi industry and it's so much better now. I'm like, exactly. Uber solved the problem for you. They're associating Uber with a massive problem and a solution that's been given to their life. And same thing with me. And I said Apple, right? I hate complex technology. It's annoying. I don't want to deal with that. I hate complex, like when my computer just won't work. When I used to have a freaking Dell or something laptop, it was just annoying. And now I've been on Apple stuff for 10 years. It's so easy, right? So I associate it with helping me simplify things that in turn helps me win my day. So actionable steps is exactly that. You've got to ask yourself the question, I will be a nobody, and my business will be a nobody. It will never be successful unless people can be asked the question, name a brand, and they mention me, because subconsciously there's such a strong tie between the problem they have in the world and how I am a solution for that. So first step of branding, I would say for people, is they've just got to identify three things, and we just call it a brand story, and it ties into what I was just saying. And it goes like this. You will never lead a team well unless you can figure this out. You will never hit sales targets unless you can figure this out. You will never create loyalty in your business with customers and internal staff until you can figure this out. You will never have vision the way that you need to have vision to lead a team, lead a business, and blow something up until you figure this out. It's called the brand story, and it's built of three things. And the first thing is you got to figure out is, what are you counterattacking in the world? Meaning, what problem do you see? I ask so many entrepreneurs this question. What are you fighting in the world? What are you fighting? And so I'll give you an example of myself at JSmedia. So I would say the problem is that we see in the world, the counterattack is most businesses fail to create a brand the market understands. And the answer to confusion is always no. So I'm stating what the problem is I see in the world. And I associate my business with that. I'm always talking about it because if I don't do that, no one's ever going to see me as the solution to that problem. So first things first is you have to identify what problem do you see in the world that you know you can solve and associate yourself with it. So many businesses try and disassociate themselves with problems because they're like, we don't want to look like we are going to cause problems. You have to, the closer you can get to a problem and you can identify yourself with a problem, actually the healthier your brand is going to be, because people connect the problems in order to find a solution, right? So that's number one. The second part of that is you have to figure out, okay, how do we actually solve that problem? What is our methodology? And so first thing is, what's your problem you're solving? What's the problem you see? What's the counterattack? The second thing is methodology, which is simply just asking the question, what? And then asking the question, how? And for me, if the first line was, most businesses fail to create a brand the market understands, and the answer to confusion is always no, I have to then say, well, how do we fix that? At JSmedia, which is my creative agency, we build brands the world falls in love with and understands, comma. That's the second part of that, which what does that do when someone hears that? It not only gives me internal clarity because I know what we do, it gives my staff internal clarity, and it's so easy to tell people how we associate with that problem. And then the last part of getting really clear on how to have a healthy brand is you have to identify the result. So many people forget to add the result into everything they do. It's great, they're getting results, but they never talk about it. You would be fascinated with the amount of online entrepreneurs we work with, and we do. We've got a part of my agency is we do something called brand therapy, where we do like surgery on people's brands, and it's really fun. And we go through these things, and you would be amazed with how many people I know that have $10 million plus businesses, big online entrepreneurs, and I ask them, so where's your content showing people what you do for people? And they're like, what do you mean? Like, I'm like, where's your testimonials? Where's the results? Where is all that stuff? And they're like, oh, we don't have any of that. Like, that is such a massive piece to build trust. And a lot of brands don't do that. And you've got to be really clear on what you do and what the result is. So again, I'll tell you what ours is. It's simple. So you drive an increase in revenue and fulfillment. It's so simple. So when you tie those things together, when people meet me now and they say, oh, what do you do? I immediately stick in their brain, because I say, oh, well, I look around the world and most businesses fail to create a brand, the market understands. And the answer to confusion is always no. I run a creative agency called JSmedia. And at JSmedia, we build brands the world falls in love with to drive an increase in revenue and fulfillment for our clients. And they'll look at me and say, you're the most fascinating person I've met all week. Because what they're really saying to me in that moment is, wow, you're so dang clear on what you do, the problem you're solving in the world, how you solve it, and the result. And because of that, I stick in people's brains. My agency sticks in people's brains. My team has a lot of clarity on what we do. I have clarity. I just have to wake up every day. And if I'm confused on what I do, I just ask myself, is this task going to fit into those three things? If it does, great, let's do it, because it's moving me closer to my goal of changing the world through brands, right? So that's a huge investment to make for someone. And I don't mean it costs you money. I simply mean it just is a massive investment. It's going to have a huge return is when you get really clear on those things. What is the problem you are associating yourself with in the world? What is the solution you have for it? And what's the result that happens after it? That is like the core of what branding is. And you build your logo off that. You build your colors off that. You build your messaging off that. But unfortunately, everyone else starts the other way. They build externally, and then they try and work internal. And what happens is they come up with, oh, we're actually not crossing paths here the way we thought we would, where the best companies in the world start internal and they go external. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost, when you're telling that brand story, you're communicating a very, very clear path from A to B. And I think that's why it's so effective. And because it's mission oriented, it's why oriented, it's purpose oriented. And it's almost like your North Star in a sense, as you were saying,
100%.
You're confused, your team is confused, your customers are confused. They just look at the little thing. They're like, oh, that's the thing. All right. And it's like, almost like the glue that holds the entire ecosystem together. So that's extremely powerful. I'm going to tell you, I'm not a fan of McDonald's myself. But
there we go.
My mind for it is that it's a great public toilet. So the problem that it solves for me is I hate most everything they do, but when I need to pee in London, wow, McDonald's is there for me. So that's quite funny.
Very true. Again, that's another problem they solve for you, right?
It's another problem. And I'm kind of turning more to you now. I'm curious about you as an entrepreneur. Do you have any kind of habits or rituals or mindsets that really keep you on the top of your game?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I think I'd go through different seasons of different things. I wouldn't say I am someone who loves like a very neat routine. I love shaking things up. I love change. I love trying different things. And I think it all just comes down to, over the years, I just have to ask myself the question, like, what does it look like to protect my energy? Because when I can protect my energy, and not some like woo-woo crazy stuff, just like simply my energy, like, how do I feel today? Am I mentally engaged? Am I cloudy? Like, what do I need to do? Do I need to go rip some trails on my bike for a while and free my mind? Do I just need to loosen it up? Do I need to, like whatever that looks like? A great way that I protect my energy is, the only way to protect your energy is knowing what takes your energy and what gives you energy, right? And so something that gives me energy is having great conversations. So this is a great example. It's 9:49 a.m. here in the morning. Anytime anyone wants to have me on a podcast, my meetings, different things like that, I always schedule them before 11 a.m. because I know I am so extroverted that if I do not talk to somebody the way we are talking right now, having human connection before 11 a.m., I will procrastinate all day because my body is saying, we can't work right now. We can't do this right now. We can't focus right now because we just want to be talking to people. Joey, you have not filled that cup yet. And so a way that I protect my energy is by going, okay, I know my body needs that. That's like literally how I'm wired. And I'm just going to make sure that I try and have a great conversation with someone every day before 11 a.m. Because if I do that, it's going to feed my extroverted soul, and I'm going to be able to then, have that part of me fulfilled, and I'm going to be able to focus a little bit more in the afternoon and not feel like I need to be walking around trying to find a neighbor because I'm just dying to talk to somebody, because that's how I'm wired. Another thing is, goes back to what we were saying earlier. I so strongly believe this. One of the greatest ways for me to protect my energy is and something that gives me energy is constantly feeling a sense of belonging to things. Meaning, I'm constantly putting myself in proximity to community and to people. And not even just having conversations, like in many ways, I'm always putting myself in proximity with different, I'm in masterminds, I'm in business groups, I'm in lots of stuff like that fuels the heck out of me. And if I don't do that, it doesn't work. I got to spend a lot of family time. I really love focusing on my family and, my friends and just things like that. Like, there's so many things. I don't have any crazy, like, I wake up and I start with eating a couple ice cubes and then I, roll on the ground 3 times. Like, I don't have some like crazy thing like that. I'm just asking myself the question every day, hey, what does it look like to be aware of how I'm feeling today and what caused me to feel the way I'm feeling today? And then I simply just take an axe, a little ice axe, and I just pick away at the ice of my energy all day in terms of what's working and what's not. And hopefully at the end of a week, I can say, that was really good. I protected my energy really well. I stayed away from things that just take from me. And I built up self-control around things that I need to do, even if they take energy from me. And I really invested in doing the things, the activities, being with the people, doing the certain, things in life that really just give me a lot of energy. And because of that, I think that sets me up for success in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. At the end of the day, it just comes down to understanding yourself and understanding how you work. Because if you don't have any energy to do anything, you're not gonna do anything. If you don't work, your business doesn't work either. And a great example of this is, you say, like, you're an extrovert, you love to have conversations in the morning, then you can focus for the rest of the day. For me, it's the other way around. I like to do my deep work in the morning because that's when I know I can get things done and really move the needle. And then when I'm feeling a bit like fleur in the afternoon, I like having conversations with people because that brings my energy back up. So it's almost like a flip. But that's awesome. That's why it's so important to understand yourself and to understand what gives you energy, what takes away energy, so that then you can create that kind of accountability system in a sense, or design your life in a way that works for you and doesn't work against you.
Yep.
Another thing that you're really into is extreme sports, right? You were mentioning earlier. I find that so cool.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. It's I've never been into drugs or anything, but it's my drug. Like it's always what I've been obsessed with. It just gives me a lot of life. Totally.
What do you like to do?
Anything. I've got my 5'7" fish right behind me, so I surf. We got a couple more boards out there. I love mountain biking. I grew up doing tons of water sports, so wakeboarding, barefooting, water skiing, cliff jumping, like all of that stuff. In the wintertime, it goes to, skiing and snowboarding. I grew up doing both, but I love riding parks. So like hitting 60-foot jumps, doing flips, like all that fun stuff. Pretty much anything that I can do that's going to give me an adrenaline rush, I'm all over. So all of it. Yeah.
I'm all about that too, but the closest thing that I have to that is like a roller coaster in a theme park. I remember when I was in Canada, it was so beautiful, and there were water sports, and people ski and they snowboard, and it's like a way of life. And I'm like, I just need to get myself back to Canada. That sounds amazing. But, the last question that I want to ask you, Joey, is what are 3 key truths about the entrepreneurial journey that you'd like to drop on a young entrepreneur today?
3 key truths. That's a great question. It's almost hard to know where to start. I would say number 1 is 1000% identify what problem you're solving in the world. Tell yourself you're a problem solver. Like, stop calling yourself an entrepreneur. Call yourself a problem solver. Like, literally speak it over your life. So number 1, identify the problem and get as close to that problem as you can. Don't disassociate yourself with that problem because you have the solution. Get as close to that problem because you have the solution. What you'll find is the proximity of people that have that problem will start to become the proximity of people that need that solution. So that's number 1. Number 2 is seek community in everything you do. I'm just a huge believer. I don't know a single person ever that was successful. I know a lot of very successful people in very different ways. And I don't know a single one of them that has been successful without people. They're all totally have been defined by the communities they've been a part of, by the families they've come from, by the people they surround themselves with, the decisions they decide to make for people. All of that was just so cool. And so when I say community, I mean like not just friends that say, "Oh, you're cool because you're an entrepreneur." I mean like people above you that have walked where you're trying to walk. Go sense community. Go find proximity to experience and power. So go find people that have truly walked the walk. And the last part of that is give. I truly believe the more you give, the more you live. I think your business is meant to do good. Your business doing good and doing good with your business shouldn't be different. They should go hand in hand. I have a massive heart for myself in my own personal way, using my business to help change the world in big ways and small ways, whatever that's going to be, just trying to do whatever I can. And then I love taking people on the journey of how they can do that as well, because I've seen my life change through giving, and my heart changed through giving, and it's changed my business over and over again. And I truly believe that the more people are going to go, okay, my business is not for me, it's actually for other people, and I'm going to serve other people, and I'm going to take the overflow of what comes out of this, and I'm just going to decide to distribute it to different places that need it. The world needs help. The world needs a lot of things in many different ways, as I'm sure everyone can nod their head to with everything we're living through right now. And just so happens that love is the reason, but money's the tool. And so if you have the ability as an entrepreneur to make money, for the love of Pete, just give, have fun with it. Let it change you, because it will change you, and it will benefit you for sure. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm. That's really, really powerful. That's extremely powerful advice there. Thank you so much, Joey. At this point, is there anything that you have that you would like to plug to the people?
like to plug? Oh, great question. I mean, you guys are all listening to podcasts, so swipe down, go to the search bar and type in Walls to Hurdles. That's my podcast, Walls to Hurdles with Joey Speers. Totally dropped the ball on it with the amount of episodes that I do. I do not put enough energy into that because I've been so focused on other things. But hey, we got a lot of cool stuff coming. So if you're into anything around the creative space, entrepreneur, stuff, money mindset, it all gets personal development. It all gets talked about on that show as well. So Walls to Hurdles podcast. If you want to check out my agency for any reason, it's joeyspeers.com. And if you are a creative who goes, I got to break this creative struggle, you can head on over to www.creativerisemmastermind.com and scratch all of that if you just want to get in touch with me, because I love getting in touch with people. Just come to my Instagram, which is just at Joey Speers, and I would love to hear from you. If you want to message me, tell me what you learned in this episode and maybe how it's going to impact you. I would love to know. Be cool.
Perfect. I'll put all of that in the show notes, from podcast hater to podcast maker and podcast contributor and guest. Absolutely love it. Well, thank you so much for your time, Joey. That was incredibly powerful. And thank you so much.
Yeah, totally. Thank you.